Good evening. I've got some opening remarks. The public meeting is being heard by the City Council Planning Advisory Committee, and public notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The non-elected members of the Planning Advisory Committee are Mr. John Beltutis, Mr. David Joyce, Ms. Catherine Brown, Mr. Paul Jennings. Citizen appointees may ask questions and participate in the discussion in order to assist in making recommendations to City Council, but may not make motions or vote in connection with the public meeting. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Planning Committee or City Council before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of City Council or the local planning appeal board. If the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Belleville before the related bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal, unless in the opinion of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. Comments received at this public meeting, as well as written comments, will be considered by the Engineering and Development Services Department in analysis of the applications that were part of the public meeting tonight. A recommendation report will be brought forward upon receipt of all agency and public comments in the future. Any persons wishing to be advised of the Belleville Planning Advisory Committee's recommendations with respect to today's applications are requested to leave their name and address on the appropriate notification sheet located on the clipboard beside the podium. As far as attendance goes, I see all council members are present. Disclosure of any pecuniary interest. Seeing none. Public meeting. 3.1 notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 18 St. Paul Street, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number B-77-1087. Applicant owner is John Royal. Agent is Keith Watson of Watson Land Surveyors Limited. Mr. Ashton.
Okay, so the applicant intends to redevelop the site that currently has a single detached dwelling into a semi-detached dwelling by adding an addition to the existing structure so that it would conform to the definition of a semi-detached dwelling with the new unit on the lot that is being created as part of a recently approved severance. This rezoning is a condition of consent application B1119, which was approved in approved on May 23rd, 2019. So this area is within the former gas plant advisement zone due to its vicinity to the former coal gas plant, which was located west of South Church Street and north of the homes on St. Paul Street. Environmental Services of the City of Belleville stated they distributed a building permit area advisement notice and a precautionary notice regarding shallow soil in this area, including to the property owner at 18 St. Paul Street. The building permit advisement notice included a description of coal tar contaminate soil and that some of the chemicals found in coal tar may be hazardous to human health or the environment if they are present in sufficiently high concentrations. The notice suggests property owners undertake subsurface environmental investigations and assessments prior to excavation and or building. So Environmental Services will provide further comments after a fuller review of this application. In addition, the applicant will be providing a lot sketch showing how parking will be accommodated on the lot for both the severed and retained parcels. And comments received at this public meeting, as well as subsequent written comments, will be considered by the Engineering and Development Services Department in analysis of the application received to amend the City of Belleville zoning bylaw. And a recommendation report will be brought forward upon receipt of all public agency and public comments.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward and activate the microphone.
My name is Keith Watson. I'm here with the owner, John Royal, to support the application. Basically, everything that the planning staff said we agree to and will agree with and complete any conditions within the time frame that you want us to do.
Okay. So, sorry, could you repeat that into the microphone, the committee members?
Sorry. My name is Keith Watson.
There you go.
I am here with the owner, John Royal, and we've read the planning report, and we agree with everything that's in it, and we're just here to support the application and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Any questions from the committee members? No? Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application?
Hello, I'm Tony McGarvey. I'm the Director of Finance of WT Hawkins Inc. and 105 Pinnacle Limited. We would be John or Mr. Royal's largest neighbor, and I'd just like to state that we're in no problems with what he's doing and in support of his project.
Okay, great. Any questions at all? No? Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? And I'll ask a third time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to refer this to the Plan Advisory Committee? Councillor Culhane, if I show up, I can remember, and Councillor Kelly. All in favor? Motion is carried. 3.2, Notice of Complete Application and Introductory Public Meeting for Application for Proposed Amendment to Zoning Bylaw Number 2076-80 as amended, 490 Dundas Street West, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number B-77-1088. Applicant owner is the Pentecostals of Quinte. Agent is Barry Johnson of RBJ Concepts Incorporated. Mr. Ashton.
So this application intends to add dwelling units as a permitted use within the existing church building for accommodation of traveling clergy and church members. The application proposes to amend the zoning bylaw 2076-80 to add dwelling units as a permitted accessory use within the highway commercial CH11 zone. If you do, there is a slide up here available, so you can see that on the second floor is where those dwelling units would be located within, so there would not be any proposed new building at this point in time. Comments received at this public meeting as well as subsequent written comments will be considered by the Engineering and Development Services Department in analysis of the application received to amend the City of Belleville zoning bylaw 2076-80, and a recommendation report will be brought forward upon receipt of all agency and public comments.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? You can please come forward to the podium and state your name.
Hi, I'm Barry Johnson from RBJ Concepts, supporting the application for the owner. As it was sort of noted, the applicant is looking to provide residential units, single, almost hotel-style units, self-supporting within what used to be the daycare center and the offices for the daycare, which is now a redundant space. These units would be used, again, for traveling clergy, also would be used for people that they sponsor, families or groups that they sponsor that are moving through, need temporary billeting, and then move on to other areas of the province and possibly Canada. The building itself would not be enlarged. There's no exterior construction. There's no enlargement of the footprint. This all takes place within the existing footprint. At this point in time, we were able to show that we can put in 7 self-sustaining units. They would have a small kitchenette and operate basically as a self-sustaining unit. What predicated it was that the zoning, the general part of the zoning, the CH zoning, allows hoteling and moteling. They are not going to do hoteling and motel. There will no signs out or anything like this. This is for their own general use as a church group, as a church body. And they just see a need that they can fill, and this empty space will do it. The parking is not impacted. We have more parking than we need. The space is not impacted, and as I said, there's no construction, so there's no impact to any setbacks or anything like that.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Any questions from any of the committee members? I don't see none. Did you say that the daycare center is redundant?
It is vacant.
Okay,
They moved out to another location, and so
Okay.
the space is available.
okay, great, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application? And finally, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Anyone wanting to speak in opposition of the application? Anyone wanting to speak in opposition of the application? And finally, a third time, anyone wanting to speak in opposition of the application? Seeing none, can I get a motion to refer? Councillor Kelly. Councillor Culhane. All in favor? That motion is carried. 3.3, notice of application and introductory public meeting for a proposed draft plan of subdivision, Sanctuary Court, part of Lot 37, Concession 1, former Township of Sydney, now City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number 12T-19001. Owner is Sanctuary Court, GP Inc., care of Sifed Hussaini, and I apologize if I said that. Agent is McIntosh Perry Consulting, Marco Seek. Mr. Ashton. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Certainly. Thank you. So the application that you have before you here is applying to land on the east side of Palmer Road, just south of Moyer Street West. The subject property is just over 1.3 hectares in size. And as shown on the attached draft plan, the owner proposes to create a total of 12 blocks of land out of this subdivision. Blocks 1 to 10 would be used for possible 39 street townhouse units. Block 11 would be for servicing, connection, and emergency access in the northeast corner to Pepper Avenue. And Block 12 is intended for stormwater management. There would be a dry pond there to collect water and then slowly release it to the city's stormwater system. The proposal would create a new road, Sanctuary Court, extending from Palmer Road, and there would be no direct connection except for an emergency gated access through to Pepper Avenue. It should be noted that this proposed subdivision was approved in 2006, draft approved, and then it was, the approval lapsed following that. In 2015, the owners reapplied for essentially the same concept, and it was draft approved at that point. And unfortunately, due to another change in ownership, the approval lapsed last fall. So as a result, this is essentially a resubmission of what has been previously put in.
Thank you, Mr. Pynchon. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application?
So, good evening. My name is Marco Cekic. I'm a land use planner with McIntosh Perry, and I'm here on behalf of Sanctuary Court, GP Inc. I think I'll just begin with a bit of a general context on the site. We'll move into the site and discuss some of the history, which was touched upon, as well as the planning context. So these subject lands, we'll refer to them as subject lands, are legally described as part of Lot 37, Concession 1, former Township of Sydney, and now in the City of Belleville. They're located within the city's built-up area, but right near the edge of the rural area as well. The subject lands are currently vacant and bounded by residential uses to the north, Palmer Road to the west, vacant land to the south, and residential industrial uses to the east. You can see the outline of the site. So the subject lands are approximately 1.9 hectares in area with frontage on Palmer Road. They also abut Pepper Avenue, where the proposed emergency access would be, and at this time, the lands are vacant. So our client proposes to redevelop the site into a residential subdivision. The subject lands will be subdivided to create 14 blocks, 10 residential blocks, consisting of 39 townhouse dwellings, with accompanying driveways. There'll be 1 block for stormwater management, 1 block for emergency access, and 2 reserve blocks to be conveyed to the City of Belleville. And that was alluded already. It's important to note that this is the third time this application is before the city. Unfortunately, due to ownership changes, the application has lapsed several times. The studies that accompanied this application were simply the updated versions of what was approved last time around. And this is just a enlarged draft plan. So you just see a picture here. This is from Palmer Street where the proposed access would be for the subdivision. Again, if you're looking from Palmer, this would be the abutting dwelling on the south side, or if you're just to your right. And similarly, this is another dwelling to the left, just for some context of where we are. And this is the end of Pepper Avenue looking into the property. We'll review some of the policy content now. So the proposal has been reviewed with regard to the overarching policy objectives of the province in the 2014 provincial policy statement, as well as those outlined in the city's official plan. The proposed Chancery Court subdivision is consistent with matters of the PPS for the following reasons. So the development, intensification of the subject land supports the province's goal of promoting efficient development and land use patterns and lessens demand and impact of sprawl into the periphery. The proposed development complements an existing variety of housing styles in the neighborhood and does not result in the unjustified or the uneconomical expansion of infrastructure, including Palmer Road and public service facilities, while also taking advantage of and supporting public transit services along Mora Street West. The proposed development will be serviced by the existing municipal sewers and water services in the area. And McIntosh Perry, as part of the previous draft plan submissions, submitted a stormwater management and wastewater design, which was approved by the city and Quinte Conservation. These were updated and resubmitted this time around as well. Subsequently, an environmental compliance application was submitted to the Ministry of the Environment, who's now the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, for review and approval. That was approved on September 26, 2017. Assuming no changes, that can be an ownership name change and continue on. So we'll take a look at the city's official plan now. So the lands are designated residential land use per the city's official plan, and the proposal conforms to and is consistent with applicable policies for the following reasons. Townhouse dwellings are permitted uses in the designation. The proposed development is an infill development serviced by existing municipal services and infrastructure, which supports the city's desire to accommodate residential growth through appropriate infilling and efficient use of existing service land. The proposed development will contribute to a variety of dwelling types at different densities in the neighborhood. And servicing the stormwater management report prepared by McIntosh Perry demonstrated that there was adequate municipal water and sewer services available, and the stormwater management was also addressed in this report. Again, this was previously approved. The subject lands satisfy the preferred location criteria for medium-density residential development for the following reasons. The proposed development will direct access to Palmer Road. The subject lands are located in close proximity to a variety of community facilities and services. The site is located in an existing residential neighborhood, which includes non-residential land uses serving the area. And the medium-density development will act as a transition area between lower-density residential uses and other uses in the area. So the subject lands are zoned residential fifth density, so R5-33 in the city's zoning bylaw. Again, horizontal multiple attached dwellings are permitted within this zone. Previously, under the last application, a portion of the site was zoned with a holding provision. That holding provision was removed. The bylaw was passed on March 20th, 2017. And also, these lands were zoned back in 2006 based on the original application, and the current proposal meets the performance standards of the R5-33 zone. Just in conclusion, the proposed subdivision is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to applicable policies, goals, and objectives of the city's official plan. The proposed development, which is illustrated in the draft plan of subdivision, will comply with the city's zoning bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from committee members? Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. I'm just curious, I haven't seen the other two proposals, but why was the subdivision to the northeast, Pepper Avenue, not pulled into this subdivision? Why was it accessed from Palmer Road as a cul-de-sac instead of joining the existing services?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I can't speak to the history. I wasn't involved in 2006. I do know that there are services coming from Pepper Avenue. I don't know why originally it was never, it wasn't connected there. I would assume there might be some engineering constraints to connecting it there, but I can't comment, unfortunately, on the history.
Okay. Can staff take a crack at that one at all, or?
Suppose, through the chair, just looking at it from the official plan perspective, I wasn't directly involved at the time, but I was on staff, and certainly it is a medium density development, and the official plan does not encourage that traffic be directed through low density areas. So, I mean, despite the fact that Palmer is a natural connection, I'm not sure if there would have been concerns at the time about traffic flow.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Marco, I appreciate the presentation, and I mean no disrespect to you and the folks you represent, but I just go back to in 06 this all started, so we're going back 13 years ago, and then there were some issues in 09, then we tried again in 2015, and that submission lapsed in 2018. I think it's great that there would be 39 new homes for Belleville residents. And I wasn't around in 06 or 15 or 18, but, and I'm only speaking for myself and for those listening to the conversation tonight. If this does move forward, can we put faith in the developer to make this happen?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think this time around it's going to happen. We've been working very diligently to resubmit. Again, this time around there was an ownership change. It was oh so close. I think it was like executing the agreement and filing the securities were the outstanding items, and in that transition period things kind of fell apart. But this time around I think the new owners are very eager to push this ahead and begin construction as soon as possible. So I don't see this happening again.
So you're suggesting, Marco, this will be the last time you're at the planning meeting?
For this application.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application? I see a hand up there if you want to come to the podium. Yeah, just if you want to come to the microphone, otherwise the audio disappears.
I should press it?
No, you're good.
Okay, so how are you? Thanks for listening to our planner. Actually, we are the owner of the Sanctuary Court. We're coming from Toronto. We want to say this is the last time. We want to make it happen.
Very
Okay?
good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to Belleville. Any other questions or comments? Speaking in favor of the application?
In favor, yes.
Yeah, please come forward.
Good evening. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the property owner at 347 Palmer Road. My name's Dan Bentley. and that is directly adjacent to the new entrance at Sanctuary Court. So I've been a property owner there since 2012. It's a 2-acre piece of property. I have my personal residence there, and there's also another piece of land over an acre and a half that, so I'm in great support of this development as far as servicing and, curb appeal, future development, housing, all that, but I did have some concerns I wanted to point out in regards to engineering and traffic. So having lived there since 2012, there is a vast disrespect for the speed limits on Palmer Road coming off Moira Street. There isn't a posted speed sign until you reach the top of the crest where the old school was to the east. So like I said, being there every day, I think we need to look at some traffic calming measures perhaps, or sight lines coming north over the hill, because it's a concern. I have children, grandchildren, so that's something we may want to look at. At the bare minimum, post a speed limit sign coming off Moira, which there isn't now. So I think people use it as a dragway, actually going to Sherwood Crescent and further to the south. So those are some of my personal concerns, but I'm sure Mac Perry is doing a diligent job of looking after that side of things. But as a resident, I have future plans of potential development, and this servicing would certainly help my cause. So again, I'm in full support of the development.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? No, see none. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application?
I'm Bob Scott. I own the old schoolhouse that was pictured there. I'm in favor of the development. Certainly, there's a need for the housing in this community. With some fairly legitimate concerns, I think. I feel the Pepper Avenue should be opened as well. I think that all that volume of traffic coming out onto our road is going to be hazardous. The speed limit there has not been applied to. Taking my garbage across the street is enough for me to know that it's a darn dangerous road to be on. People pulling in and out of there steady, it's going to be difficult. And there will be accidents, no doubt about it. And when there are accidents, you've got a whole bunch of people trapped in their community there with no other access to it. So I feel that Pepper Avenue should be opened as well. And I'm also thinking in terms of the septic systems up on Pepper Avenue and all through that region, it could probably link into this system. We're all uphill from the proposed buildings, sites there. I would think that would be something that maybe the city might look at as well, to get us all off septics down through that country. Thank you.
Any questions at all? No, see none. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application? Any?
Hi, I'm Elaine Young, and we have one of the houses adjacent to the Sanctuary Court. I wanted to direct a couple of questions, though, to Sanctuary Court and/or the Planning Committee. And I had a couple of requests, and one of them was the fencing that's around. This is going to deeply affect our property because the roadway in is like 5 feet from the bedroom window. And you get that number of cars going in and out, I would at least like a privacy fence. And I'm thinking like, what did I say? Well, a 10-foot, whatever that is in meters, would be a nice one that goes on the east side. There's already one that's on the east side on the planning, but it's a 6-foot fence, and I'd like a 10-foot fence. And just because of the big change it's going to make for our house. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments? No?
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, that was only one, and I said two. Yeah. The other one's a big one, sewers. I just feel that all of these houses going in are going to be on sewers, and we're still on septic systems. I don't see why we can't be hooked up to sewers at this time, too. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application? I see a hand up. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick comment on the sewer situation. Even some of the houses that are proposed, I believe houses 1 through 4 and a couple on the south side do have pumps pumping up to the sewer. So because of the grade for the property in question, it's not that it's not possible, but certainly an engineer would have to be hired to figure out how to get that into the current system. It certainly can't be gravity fed by any means. So that's something that would have to be considered, and either by the city or the individual landowner, hopefully prior to construction, or else that's going to get very messy and costly for everyone involved. So just to note that, again, the grade is the issue there. A pump would have to be sized by a professional engineer to make that happen.
Yeah, thank you. I'll ask one last time, anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? And finally, a third time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? Seeing none, can I get a motion to refer to the Plan Advisory Committee? Councillor Sanderson? Councillor Culhane? All in favor? All in favor? Motion is carried. 3.4, notice of application and introductory public meeting for proposed draft plan of subdivision, Bell Boulevard subdivision, part of Lot 32, Concession 2, former Township of Sydney, now City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number 12T-19002. Owner is 2555 111 Ontario Inc., care of Buhinder Paul Shamara. Agent is RFA Planning Consultant Inc. and Sean Legere. Mr. Pitchin.
Thank you. Through the chair to the members of the committee. Sorry, I don't have a visual on this one. It is included in your agenda packages, though. This relates to property located on Bell Boulevard, just east of Hannafin and south of Enterprise Drive. It's roughly a square piece of property there. It's approximately 6.8 hectares in size. And the owner proposes to create a total of 14 blocks of land, 9 separate lots for special commercial and industrial uses, which the property is currently zoned for. So these 9 blocks, essentially 3 of them would be across Bell Boulevard, and then additional blocks fronting on Hannafin going north and Enterprise going east. So Block 10 would also be created just for a site triangle at the corner of Bell Boulevard. Blocks 11 through 14 would be for access easements to provide shared access to the lots that front on Bell Boulevard. The reason for this is that access to Bell Boulevard is limited, and so it's likely that there would only be a single access point to Bell with limited turning movements, and then other accesses would be from Hannafin and Enterprise Drive. No parkland has been provided. It's proposed that a cash in lieu of parkland payment be made. This seems appropriate since there's no residential component to it. And the lots would be developed on full municipal services, which would involve some extension of services on Enterprise Drive, but otherwise the lands are presently serviced as well.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application?
Good evening, Sean Legere, planner with RFA Planning Consultant. We understand that the entrance requirements and drainage plan have been resolved through the pre-consultation process, and we have not received any further technical comments to date. The application does not require rezoning, and it is understood to be generally straightforward. However, we are looking forward to gathering input this evening, and are here to help to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Legere? Oh, seeing none. Oh, wait, Mr. Jennings?
Thank you, through the chair. Could you explain how the existing ditches in Lot 2 and 3 are going to be incorporated for the stormwater?
Yes, so the stormwater will be directed to the central facility south of the property. Generally speaking, there will be a 6-meter setback from there's a drainage course going north-south along the east property line there. The lot lines were offset to accommodate that setback, especially the smaller ones to the north. And the minor, it's understood that those sections going east-west, which you can see on the topography there, are man-made and can be incorporated and engineered as the properties develop. So the main concern from Cooney Conservation was the north-south water course, which is clearly defined, which we will have a 6-meter setback from that, which the plans will need to incorporate, but that the east-west sections are indeed man-made and they can be engineered into the site plan.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application? And finally, a third time, anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? And finally, a third time, anyone wanting to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none, can I get a motion to refer to the Planning Advisory Committee? Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. All in favor? Motion is carried. Move adjournment for this portion of the meeting. Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Williams, all in favor? Motion is carried. All right, Planning Advisory Committee meeting. I see everyone's in attendance. Disclosure of pecuniary interests and general nature thereof. Seeing none, confirmation of the minutes of the City Council Planning Committee meeting and Planning Advisory Committee meeting held on August 6, 2019. Councillor Culhane, seconded by Mr. Joyce, and all in favor? Motion is carried. No deputations, no correspondence. Oh, there's correspondence on everyone's desk, August 22nd, 2019, from RFA Planning Consultant regarding the Municipal Comprehensive Review. Get a motion to receive that. Mr. Baltutis, Councillor Kelly, all in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, 6.1, referrals to the public meeting. Notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 18 St. Paul Street, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number B-77-1087. Applicant owner is John Royal. Agent is Keith Watson of Watson Land Surveyors Limited. Principal Planners Report Number PP-2019-55. Resolution reads that report number PP-2019-55 dated September 3rd, 2019 regarding notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 is amended, 18 St. Paul Street, City of Belleville, County of Hastings be received as information and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering Development Services Department. Moved by Mr. Joyce, seconded by Mr. Jennings. Any questions or comments? See none, all in favor? Motion's carried. 6.2, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 2076-80 as amended, 490 Dundas Street West, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number B-77-1088. Applicant owner is the Pentecostals of Quinny. Agent is Barry Johnson, RBJ Concepts Incorporated. Principal Planners Report number PP-2019-56. Resolution reads that report number PP-2019-56 dated September 3rd, 2019 regarding notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 2076-80 as amended, 490 Dundas Street West, City of Belleville, County of Hastings be received as information and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Mr. Baltutis. Any questions or comments? Mr. Baltutis.
Who in the city monitors this if people move in or stay there for a week or a year? How do we monitor it so that it's not turned into a permanent or semi-permanent residence?
Okay, I'll refer that to staff.
I think we just look at dwelling unit as the person living in the unit. So we haven't placed any restrictions on, for example, Airbnb. We haven't placed restrictions on that. So Probably not, sort of, there are neighbors that, to the south, that is an issue. I think with this, it is something that is very specific to their congregation, so it's something that I think they'll regulate as well, and I think they have an interest in making sure that who's in there represents the church well, so. But in terms of accommodations and the length of time, we don't regulate that at this point in time.
Okay, thanks. I was just worried about that. It might become a permanent residence as like a...
So, sorry, it would fit the definition of a permanent residence, so I think if they wanted to have somebody as a permanent resident, they absolutely could. It's just, yeah, those shorter term, they're permitted to do those shorter term stays as well.
Mr. Joyce.
Yeah, through the chair, following Mr. Watuta's comments, have we done this anywhere else? Any other church properties are similar? Do we have any other guidance in terms of the residency and use and that, or is this the first time?
I'm sure, the traditional model of churches with the manse house or whatever is something that has always existed, but I mean, this might be a little unique, but I think I guess council's decision is, whether or not it's something that's beneficial for the community at large, as well as, which would also be people that belong to this church, I guess, would be representative of the public interest. So, yes, it is unique, and I think the simplest way to look at it, though, are residential dwelling units, and allow the church to kind of regulate themselves in this matter.
Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just a note to the church itself. I think it's very good that they're looking after their congregation, given our housing shortages, and I expect that they'll monitor the situation well.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. 6.3, notice of application and introductory public meeting for a proposed draft plan of subdivision, Sanctuary Court, part of Lot 37, Concession 1, former Township of Sydney, now City of Belleville, County of Hastings. File number is 12T-19001. Owner is Sanctuary Court, GP Incorporated, care of Sifednin Husseini. Agent is McIntosh Perry Consultant. Manager of Approvals, report number APS-2019-28. Resolution reads that report number APS-2019-28 dated September 3rd, 2019 regarding notice of application and introductory public meeting for a proposed draft plan of subdivision, Sanctuary Court, part of Lot 37, Concession 1, former Township of City, now City of Bell, will be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering Development Services Department. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Ms. Brown. Any questions or comments? Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I noticed in the submission it said no land has been set aside for parkland purposes within this proposed subdivision, and it's proposed that a cash in lieu payment will be made to the city. As a rookie planning committee member, I'd like to know what's the going rate?
Or for that staff.
Certainly, through the chair, the going rate for residential land is 5% of the value of the land on the day before it's finalized.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Baltutis.
I guess further to that question is, where does that money go? Does it go to a parkland fund that the city has?
Yes, there's a Parkland Reserve Fund.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Councillor Williams.
Thank you. And I just want to ask from staff if they know now or if it's going to come up in the final report, just pertaining to Pepper Avenue. So is there a reason why we haven't connected that, or from staff, and where are we with that on terms of the questions that were asked earlier?
Certainly, through the chair, the Pepper Avenue question, I guess, hasn't been directly addressed this round. Like I say, I believe there was probably discussion about it in the past, but we'll certainly dig back and find out where that was left and bring that forward for consideration as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I know it was mentioned at the podium regarding privacy fencing, and I guess from what I recall, we don't have a limit on the height of the fence as long as it doesn't impact the sight lines as it relates to the road allowance. So I'd like to see staff be creative in terms of providing the adequate privacy fencing that's been requested, if that's possible. Include that in the report. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, through the chair. So would we also include, the questions for Mr. Pynchon, would we also include the suggestion that was made for those owners that are currently in that existing dwellings to look at assessing whether their sewage could be pumped into the existing? Would that be part of the report, or would that be outside of it?
I'm going to refer that to Mr. Ford, and he can speak to that matter there.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee, we can ask the developer's engineer to review the grades and the topography there and provide an opinion and some information as an assessment of whether or not that's technically feasible. My experience in that area is the topography is going in the wrong direction. The topography is falling off towards the west. So trying to get a pipe to flow to service those properties is not possible because the pipe gets very shallow very quickly. But we will ask the developer's engineer to review the servicing feasibility of the adjacent properties as part of the review of the subdivision plans.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Joyce.
In follow-up to the fencing issue that you mentioned, the other issue that came up was the posted signs. There wasn't one close to that subdivision. It was up the top of the hill, and with the added volume of traffic, maybe something the traffic department should look at in terms of posted signs, because I agree, it is a very busy, now that the road is asphalt and very straight, and it is like a raceway. I was there the other day, and there is a lot of cars going quickly, so I think it's worth considering.
Staff can refer that off to the
Yes.
appropriate department.
Thank you.
And just as a side, the Transportation Committee is looking at a citywide traffic calming policy, and that's being worked on at that committee level as well. So we recognize the fact that that's a concern in a lot of areas. Any other questions or comments on that? If not, all in favor? Motion's carried. 6.4, notice of application and introductory public meeting for proposed draft plan of subdivision, Bell Boulevard subdivision, part of Lot 32, Concession 2, former Township of Sydney, now City of Belleville, County of Hastings. File number 12T-19002. Owner is 2555 111 Ontario, Inc., Prohinder Paul Shamara. Agent is RFA Planning Consultant, Sean Legere. Manager of Approvals, report number APS-2019-29. Resolution that the report number APS-2019-29 dated September 3rd, 2019, regarding notice of application and introductory public meeting for a proposed draft plan of subdivision, Bell Boulevard subdivision, part of Lot 32, Concession 2, former Township of Sydney, now City of Bell, will be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. Moved by Ms. Brown, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Any questions or comments? Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, through the chair to staff, on page 54, there's a reference to capacity, and I'm just wondering if it's too early to make comment on the current sewage and water capacity.
Sorry, just give us a second here. Yep. And which paragraph?
Second paragraph.
Second paragraph? Sorry.
It talks about the plan of the subdivision avoids the unjustified need or uneconomical expansion of such services. That's odd terminology.
Okay, yeah, so through the chair, I believe that in this case, the proposed subdivision is already serviced on Bell Boulevard and up Hannafin. So the potential for extending services would be along Enterprise Drive to connect another three or four lots along the top side there within land that's already primarily serviced. I believe there was one reference in my report that talked about capacity on Enterprise Drive and locating large-scale developments. For example, if there was a proposal for a hotel or something, that it would need to be located fronting on Bell to connect into those services instead of to the west. But in general, I mean, the land is essentially serviced. It's just in splitting it up, it makes sense to extend the services along Enterprise as well.
Okay, so really the comment is just saying that we would do it the most economical way possible. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor for that motion? Motion is carried. 7, report, 7.1, recommendation report, proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 260 and 262 Dundas Street East, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number B-77-1086. Applicant owner is James McMahon Dentistry Professional Corporation, and the agent is Task Force Engineering Incorporated. Principal Planners Report number PP-2019-58. The resolution reads that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council: that application B-77-1086 to amend zoning bylaw 10-245 as amended regarding 260 and 262 Dundas Street East, City of Belleville, County of Hastings be approved as follows: that zoning bylaw 10-245 as amended be amended by rezoning the subject lands from residential second density R2-3 zone to highway commercial C3-1 zone to highway commercial C3-58 zone with special provisions to reduce the front yard setback to 7.5 meters and also permit uses listed under the non-retail commercial C5 zone. Mover for that, Mr. Joyce, seconded by Mr. Baltutis. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Motion's carried. 7.2, final report, municipal comprehensive review of urban serviced area official plan update, manager of policy planning report number PP-2019-57, that the final report, municipal comprehensive review of urban serviced area official plan update be received as information. Moved by Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Any questions or comments? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of comments on this final report, and I think it's very well done. One of the concerns I've had from the onset is that we're basing numbers on the final plan based on historical averages, which, true or not true, I think have been quite low. We've averaged in 10 years about 200 residential dwellings a year. And when we look at looking further into development, something we made a comment on the housing summit was that we wanted to double that number. And so when we look at the plan and some of the comments from that, I know that what we'd asked when we had RFA and we had Watson talk to council was we had that we could look at a review of this final report in about 4 or 5 years. And I guess the question I have for that and for staff is, if we go back to this report and we're looking at it, what is the cost of that going to be to go back into consultation to relook at this report in 4 or 5 years? And to relook at where our capacity is and what we're able to build for the city.
I'll refer that.
So I suppose there's a number of ways to look at that. There's this process that we're undertaking started out as a really basic update. We expanded the terms of reference initially as I don't want to call it a status quo update, but there was basically a municipal comprehensive review and making sure the minimum was done to adhere to the provincial policy statement. I think that was budget of about $65,000. That's with two consultants, one Watson, the other Dylan. Watson doing the land economy review to see what the land needs are. Dylan doing the policy development in terms of writing the new policies for the official plan. I would just be taking a guess if I knew what that breakdown was. I think what's important though is, and we've talked about this internally as well, is in perhaps like 5 years after approval of this, we not just look at the the review, but we also look a little more detailed at the sites that are in the city to make a final determination. Because if there's unserviceable land that can't be serviced economically, then we might look at eliminating that from our urban boundary and maybe putting more land in. But I think this report is pretty strong in its conclusions that we do right now have a 20-year supply. We can't add more land to our urban boundary to kind of increase our oversupply. Like if we do have an oversupply, we just can't keep adding land to our urban boundary. It has to be basically a 20-year supply. So if you want to say, I would guess $30,000 to $40,000 would be a municipal comprehensive review. We could do that initially in 5 years, and then if it warranted, say, an expansion of the boundary or update to policies, we could sort of do that next. But that would be me sort of projecting 5 years out and wondering what the cost was. So.
And thank you. I think that's better than hearing a $400,000 or $500,000 number, which would make it very difficult, I think, for any council to go back. So I think that's good news. Municipalities in the past have used H holding symbols. I think they're now called deferred, to look at pieces of land that may not be developable. And the reason might be that I think on the west or certain parts we have a $50 or $60 million pump station or some other things that we need to develop before we can develop that land. Have we looked at prioritizing land in terms of what can be serviceable first in order for some of this report to state that this would be more apt to happen sooner than later in terms of looking at that kind of land? And I guess my only question would be that the old H symbol or deferred on that, does the province see that on a plan is able to free up more land when that is present on a report?
So the province, when this process was originally initiated a few years ago, and then it was restarted, at the time, the provincial comments were to include, especially with the Loyalist secondary plan, sort of recognizing that this would be phased over time so that it's sort of more clear and transparent, I guess, to the community or to somebody perhaps wanting to purchase land and build it. So that'll be part of this. In terms of holding symbols, that would be more the role of a zoning bylaw. And I guess that's whether you're a fan of holding symbols or not. I'm of the notion that you can also regulate through your site plan control and stuff too. So you have to servicing actually has to be available. But I think, yeah, first it starts with your phase, like if there is a phasing requirement for, it should be tied to your official plan. Now, we obviously want the perfect official plan, but it was last updated in 2002. So this, we're going to get towards that, but there might be some fine tuning in 5 years' time now. This is to sort of get us to 2018 or 2019, and then, we work and refine it a little bit for better transparency for the development industry and for the community to sort of so they know a little more what they can do and can't do, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, through the chair, item 4 talks about the land swap. So if you could just tell us what specific two parcels of land are being swapped?
Okay. So as part of the terms of reference, was to include the urban boundary, or to expand the urban boundary to include the municipally owned lands for the Northeast Industrial Park. The only way the province will allow that, because I went back to the provincial policy statement, doesn't let you keep adding more and more land. So we have too much industrial land designated right now. So one solution that the consultants and the ministry looked at was to do a land, like there's the Canifton area, which has an industrial area, but there's no plans to service it for industrial purposes at this point in time. So we can either, so that's a solution that the province will accept if we do the swap. So if that's probably a decision of council at the end of the day, but if also the Ministry of Municipal Affairs is the approval authority. So council can recommend approval, but it's the ministry that actually approves the official plan. So that's that's related to, the land swap's related to adhering to the provincial policy statement.
So what area of land is it in the Canifton area, and what will it be used for once the swap is complete?
Right now, the industrial policies of the official plan state that before industrial development occurs, we should treat it like rural land use designation. So a lot of that land would remain rural, so it'd still fall within the same policy regime. There might be some parcels that are more attributable to be agricultural, and they might become agricultural. So I think right now it's, we're starting circulating these drafts, so we're also looking for public comments. So when public comments come in, those we can specifically address. And so that's, I guess, through this process, we are looking for written comments from the public, because, these matters will impact people and their property.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Motion's carried. 7.3, emerging policy issues, technical brief to support the official plan update. Manager of Policy Planning Report Number PP-2019-59. Resolution reads that report number PP-2019-59 dated September 3rd, 2019 regarding emerging policy issues, technical brief to support the official plan update, August 2019 be received as information, and that staff forward all public comments regarding the technical brief to the city's consultants to allow the finalization of the draft official plan update. Going to move her on that. Councillor Sanderson, Mr. Baltutis, any questions or comments? Councillor Sanderson.
So, through the chair, when I looked at the report, it really is, it's quite good in terms of, there's some 36 recommendations, and they're all pretty solid. One of the things I thought was lacking was the definition of affordable. It talks about affordable housing in a number of locations, but it doesn't say, as it does with other things, that we should define what affordable is. And I think it's really important that we define it, because it's used by different people in different contexts.
And probably, some of the recommendations didn't get into sort of the definitions aspect of it. I think, I don't want to speak for the consultants ahead of time, but I'd assume that they would use the second part of the provincial policy statement, which sort of talks about at or below market rates for rent and also for housing as well as the definition of affordable.
So affordable, as I understand it, really only applies to rental properties, and it's where it's charged at 80% of market value. Is that incorrect?
That's the CMHC definition, and that's sort of was originally incorporated into the provincial policy statement, but I think the province realized that that's a very difficult thing to attain, so they've updated the provincial policy statement to talk about, at or below market rate in terms of rental units. And I think there still is part of that, although I've been sort of immersed in trying to develop some affordable rental housing statements for the province, so I don't have the actual full definition on the top of my mind, but yeah, there is a portion of that related to home ownership as well.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? So just to follow up on Councillor Sandison's comments, because I've raised this before too, initially when we talk about affordability. Is there anything in that can be brought in terms of income affordability? So when we talk about the market rent, that has to do with rental properties, but I'm looking at from a home ownership point of view, because if we go back to some of the statistics that we've received and we look at the average salary, the income of our residents, is there a way to define it where affordability, because when I read affordability, I always, as Councillor Sandison pointed out originally, it was geared to the market and a reduction of the full market rent. But what about in terms of home ownership based on income affordability? Is there, I haven't seen anything provincially that's talked about that, but is there something that can be brought in to include that to ensure that our housing actually reflects what our residents who are based on their income and average income can actually afford? Is that possible?
I probably don't have a definitive answer for you tonight, but something I can look into.
Okay.
The also the issue, it starts getting into people zoning as well, which gets a little tricky. And I think if you want to look at targeting certain segments, you kind of have to look through your, other programs to supplement, like whether that be a housing CIP kind of idea with home ownership, but they can get pretty, I won't say difficult, but pretty onerous to sort of regulate, where if you're selling somebody, a $200,000 house, how do you prevent them from turning around and selling it for $300,000 the day after tomorrow sort of idea? So there's tricky that, but I can look into that as well if you'd like, and maybe provide an email to council in terms of after discussions with the consultants occur.
Great, thank you. Ms. Brown.
Mr. Chair, just clarification in terms of affordability. I'm not sure that I was understanding your point. In terms of geared to income, whether or not someone can afford the home, or are you referring to whether or not the home is affordable?
Yeah.
That's why the clarification is
requested. That's fair. What I'm looking at in terms of some of the background study, it gives us demographics of our population, but it also talks about the average income. And so when we look at what the average income is, what is an affordable amount to purchase even a home based on the income? And that's what I'm saying is regardless of trying to zone, I'm not trying to suggest we zone people or anything, but we have to be cognizant of the fact of what's the average salary in Belleville, and does the housing even come anywhere clear to making it affordable? Or is the housing so unaffordable? Like I don't want to cite specifics, but a $20 an hour salary or wage in the industrial park, what can you afford in terms of a home? And so that's what I'm trying to get at, is the actual, based on what people are making in our community, what can they afford? And is it affordable? So I'm not necessarily geared to income in terms of if you're on ODSP or some type of government program that you get subsidized. I'm saying is that we really have to be if you really want to tackle the housing issue at the municipal level, we got to send a message out that this is what our residents are making in terms of salary, and then therefore, what can they actually afford? Some people can afford more, some people can afford less, but we have to, if we're going to catch everybody, we have to be cognizant of the fact that there's single income, double incomes making minimum wage. What can they afford? And can they afford a house, or what kind of house? And so I'm just saying is we have to be cognizant of that. We look at our demographics and we say our population is aging, and therefore we're trying to gear development based on aging. So we look at that demographic and try to shape something, but we don't really spend a lot of time looking at actual incomes to say this is what we can afford. We have lots of migration from other communities that are selling homes and can come to the city and pay cash and not even blink an eye. But there's other people that are making $16, $17 an hour scraping to get by. And you know, they have the right to have a house just as well as the person making $200,000 a year. And that's why I'm saying is in terms of the income side of things, we have to be cognizant of what our community is actually making in terms of revenue. I don't know if that answers your questions or just muddies the water even more, but.
No, I don't know it muddies the water. It just seems to me that we're creeping into the banking industry in terms of affordability. That was why my question is the banking industry and CMHC will determine what amount of mortgage income the people intending to buy. It's no more than 80% that you can mortgage these days. So that kind of thing is understandable. If we're looking at it from supply that's available, given the income level, it's a slightly different way of looking at it. I just want to be clear that we're not crossing over into creating a credo around financial institutions and what people could or could not afford.
No, and you know, that's a bigger discussion, and the housing in terms of affordability has got to start at the federal level and look and work its way down. But all I'm saying is that as a councillor, I look at our community and I see what people are making, and therefore are we creating policies in such a way that actually encourage that type of development to actually make it affordable for the working class, if you will. So that's all. I'm not trying to creep into the banking industry. It's not even close. Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment to you. I believe I get your point completely, and perfect for pointing it out. There are so many people who cannot think of buying a home because there are so many people who cannot afford even an apartment. And what I don't have at my fingertips are the statistics, but we can get them, and we know that the $20 an hour factor is bona fide. You're just addressing a real issue, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm happy that you brought that up and spoke about it too, because I see this all the time. I hear it all the time. I just got some numbers from Stats Canada for this area. Belleville's average salary is $41,286 from July 2018. And, you know, people can't make it. That's the reality. And I think I speak for all my colleagues as councillors. I spoke to a mom not long ago, and a full-time job. Her son has a full-time job. And every 2 weeks, her take-home pay is close to $1,100. And she has her son living in the home. It's a rented apartment. And her goal is to be a homeowner. And she just can't get over that hump. And that's not been the last year or two. This has been her career, if you will, trying to get over that hump. Whether the car breaks down, they have to travel to work. And we talk about on the planning committee new developments, condos, apartments, homes. If they're asking $350 or $425 or $400 for these homes, I'm going to tell you, I don't think they will ever afford it. and they can't get out of that cycle. It's tough, and as councillors, we hear that all the time. And this particular lady I spoke with, when the car breaks down, $600. It's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. They're lucky to put food on the plate, and she told me she goes out maybe for a meal or a movie once every 2 months. I'm with you on this, Mr. Chair. I think that there has to be a connection between the city and what they're paying. Ask somebody that's in their 20s or early 30s or 40s trying to make ends meet. I know of a father with 5 children working in the industrial park area in the Quinte area, and every 2 weeks it's a grind to make the payments, and he rents. So I'm on board with you on that because it's real. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, through the chair. So one of the other things that, as I read through the document that isn't there, and I'm just wondering if we can give it some thought, is there isn't anything in there that talks about protecting the existing rental properties that we have. And the reason I bring it up is just because of what we've seen with the move towards condo conversion. So I'm just wondering if we should put some language in there that offers some protection for rental properties. Thank you.
Okay, I'll make a note of that. And there might be some things that aren't part of their document that are already being incorporated into the official plan policies that might have been the result of past comments from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs as well. But I will follow up with them and make your thoughts known.
That's a good point, Councillor Sanderson. Any other questions or comments? We got a motion on the floor. All in favor? Motion's carried. Number 8, information matters, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, monitoring report, and report to September 3rd, 2019. Can I get a motion to receive? Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Culhane. Any questions of staff on any of those? Mr. Joyce?
I do see that the Farnham Road has been appealed, so I think it's fairly new, so do we expect any timetable on that, or is it just going to grind through?
Mr. Ashton?
There has been an appeal received by LPAT. I haven't received notification on whether there's a 2-stage process. First of all, they send a notice that they've received it, and the second notice is that whether or not it's a valid appeal and it can be moved forward with a hearing. I'm not sure if the clerk has received anything yet either. No, so we haven't received that second part, but.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just a follow-up then, further to Councillor Sanderson. I don't see on here the condominium notice here, the 2 applications last time. Is that something that is subject to appeal, and if so, have you had any updates?
So I think this list is just the OP and zoning bylaw, and then the approvals, I'll let Greg answer.
Yes, through the chair, I can advise that we've sent out notice of refusal. I haven't heard anything about an appeal at this point, but I'll certainly let the committee know.
Okay. Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I guess to Mr. Ashton, regarding 35 South Church Street. I was of the understanding that there was private consultation going on there. Is that considered an appeal?
So 55 and 59 South Church Street, yeah.
2 of them.
So I think there was an approval that, yeah, there could be consultation or negotiation. And then there are still discussions between the lawyers, and I know that it's kind of subject to lawyers sending each other letters.
But is that considered an appeal, an ongoing appeal?
So that would just be negotiation. So if they can't reach any sort of settlement, then they would have a hearing date set in the future. but it hasn't reached that point yet.
But we'll know.
Yep.
We'll know. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor to receive that? Motion's carried. General business and inquiries. Seeing none, I got some closing remarks. The Planning Advisory Committee's applicable decisions will be forwarded to City Council for consideration, forming part of the agenda for the City Council meeting to be held at a future date. Get a motion to adjourn. Councillor Sanderson, Mr. Joyce, all in favor? Motion's carried.